Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of UPressPlay Sports. I'm your host, Richard Pereira, and joining me today is the new sports editor, Maddox Greenberg, the new editor-at-large, Cameron Priester, and staff writer, Zachary Watts. Hey, guys, how's it been going? And welcome to the podcast, Maddox. Your first episode being here, so I want to know how you and the other guys have been going.
I've been doing good so far. This semester, I already uploaded 2 articles, a baseball recap and a softball recap as well. So I got that down. Cameron's also working on a 1-game series with FGCU baseball. So I'm gonna have that out either later today, Tuesday, or early Wednesday morning. So already uploading articles.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Maddox, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I had just graduated officially, so
I'm here.
Richard, as your time comes to an end on this podcast, so does mine. I'm sure we'll save our sentiments for the later episodes and how much fun we've had on this, but we're going to continue to do what we've always done, and that's just talk FAU sports and national sports, which I'm excited to do. I mean, FAU side of things could be a little better, but national sports wise, there's always something interesting to talk about. So I'm looking forward to diving into those things.
Same.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Congrats to you guys on graduating. Congrats to Maddox on new position. Yeah, I've been doing well. Like you said, a lot of good national stuff to talk about. Still a lot of good FAU stuff to talk about, even with the semester over. So I'm ready to get into it.
All right. So we're first going to start off with FAU Baseball, and they're in pretty good rhythm throughout the past 2 weeks. They have won 5 of their last 6 games, including sweeping the FIU Panthers in convincing fashion, outscoring them 31-8. So it's a very good run. It's a very good ratio of how we overwhelmed the Panthers offensively. And we followed that up by winning our series against Charlotte on the road, taking 2 out of 3, which is our second series win on the road this season, and our first outside of Florida, besides our first series win on the road against the Panthers, of course. So, and we saw great back-to-back clutch performances from Spencer Rich and Robert Wigielnik, especially with Spencer Rich, who scored both game-winning runs in both wins, and Wigielnik just coming through on the mound with his clutch pitching. So heading into this matchup against FGCU, what are your guys' thoughts on how they should approach this? As of this time of this recording, it is Tuesday, and at 6:30, just a few hours from now, they'll be taking on the Eagles, hoping to get another series win against their opponents.
Yeah, I think they're playing extremely well as of late. Getting a crucial series sweep against FIU is huge. It always helps to build momentum. I think another thing with summer baseball in a college setting that really helps is once you're out of classes, you have a lot more time to dedicate towards a sport. Not a whole lot of outside, I wouldn't call them distractions because education does come first, but, just to be able to clear your mind and solely focus on baseball is really important for such a mental game. I thought in the FIU series and the Charlotte series, our bats were extremely hot. I think in the FIU series won like 13-3, 8-4, and 10-1. So when pitching's good and offense can back it up, like that's always a plus. So when both things are hot, that's well. And then even in the Charlotte series, this is where you start to see where one side complement the other one. Like our bats weren't as hot the first game, but pitching pitched well enough to keep it a 3-2 game and get the win. When our bats were hot and pitching wasn't well, we still were able to pull out a win. And then unfortunately, the last game of the series, things just didn't work out. But, it's always hard to win a series. It's harder to continue a 5-6 game win streak. So being able to win a series against a conference opponent was huge in that regard. I think we only have one more series at home, and I believe that's against Louisiana Tech. Yep. So, with the summer season rolling around, the weather's going to play a huge part in these games too. So I think it's really important to just kind of use that to our best advantage, force those guys to stay on the field as long as possible, make them uncomfortable in this Florida heat. But, we've been living in it all year long. It's Florida, winning in paradise is our motto. So, that's kind of the mentality I'd hope we stick to. And, I'm always going to trust Coach Mack. He's been solid through his entire tenure here. So I'm sure he'll find a way to continue things rolling offensively and defensively for this team. But, it's just all about consistency at this point. I think you've already found where your weaknesses are. it's just about sticking to what you believe will work best for you come regional time.
Yeah, no, I think these two past series is when, sweeping FIU and then getting the series winning in the road on Charlotte is just kind of what they need after that kind of little slump they went through for a couple series. And all the things like Zach said, you're kind of now getting into summer baseball where, it really kind of changes, where the stakes get a little bit higher, and with this postseason approaching, and they look good. They never had to go save Sunday when they they dropped that Sunday afternoon game against Charlotte. They never really had to go too deep in their bullpen, even when in the first game when the bats exactly weren't kind of hot. And a great outing in 2 games. We really should give Robert Wigelnik, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, his credit. He was called upon to close 2 games in a row, and he was fantastic in both those games. And the way they kind of won those games, scrappy, having to come back in 8th and 9th innings in both of those 2 wins. It's great baseball and what you want to see in this time of the season. And looking at FGCU, I think they should kind of look at the game same way they looked at those first 2 matchups, where kind of nothing to lose, where they playing I don't know where they're ranked right now, but they were FGCU's 15, I think, when they met them those first 2 games. So that kind of nothing to lose attitude in a team that's highly touted like that can come in common or can really help you at this point. And I think that's kind of the attitude they take going into this game tonight. Excuse me.
Yeah, for me, I do think that it was very critical it was really great right now for FAU on the streak they are on now, especially what Zach said. Right now, they're not really like juggling between academics and then also being a student athlete. It's now like focused on like the game as it is now. And close end of the season, I think just priority should be to get this win, to have a series sweep at home, which will always be great to have a great win at home. So I think just focus on that and then get ready for the conference tournament, and hopefully they'll be able to get to the College World Series, I believe.
Yeah, that is the dream right there, Maddox, getting to the College World Series. That'd be insane and an incredible feat for this FU baseball squad, but still a lot of work ahead of them before they even get to that point. But yeah, after the matchup against Florida Gulf Coast, they have 3 games against Louisiana Tech, which would be their last Conference USA series at home against a Conference USA opponent in Louisiana Tech from Friday to Sunday. I will personally be at one of the games. Could be Friday, or Sunday. Don't know which one, but I know at the very least, I'll be at one of them. But yeah, best of luck to them, and hopefully they can finish up the season. Well, there's still a couple of games before the regular season ends, but finish your home series in conference play on a high note. And before we finish our time with FEU sports, shout out to FEU softball's Gabby Sacco, who won Conference USA's Pitcher of the Year. Major shout out to her. She was excellent throughout her time as a pitcher. Just being excellent for FEU softball, as they had a great season under first-year head coach Jordan Clark. A major props to her and the team, and best of luck to them as they prepare for the Conference USA tournament. And moving on from FU sports, we have the national sports. And for our only topic for today is the NBA. NBA playoffs, we're pretty much halfway into the second round. Every team's at the very least in their game, past their game 4s. Now they're entering their game 5s, maybe 6, depending on who you are. But yeah, Miami looking very good against the New York Knicks squad that has been struggling to gain a rhythm, especially on the offensive end of the floor. When Miami going up 3-1 against them, and the Lakers, going up 3-1 against the defending champion Golden State Warriors. And we had the Nuggets, Suns, Sixers, Celtics just tied at 2 apiece for each series. So what are your guys' thoughts on how the second round of the NBA playoffs has gone so far?
I'll start it off. But or I'll kind of go in order of games that I'm not as intrigued by, and then work my way towards the games I probably value more. Starting off with just the Heat Knicks series, the Heat are just playing complete basketball all the way around. Like, it just seems like everything they do is working right for them. The Knicks are obviously struggling. They can't seem to put it together at this point. And it's coming at the worst time. The playoffs are not where you want to fall apart as a team. So, but it also just kind of feels like one of those things where the Heat are on like a dynasty run. Like, everyone kind of counted them out and didn't really view them as like a top contender per se. And, as disrespectful as that is, it's not as disrespectful as it seems, just because there's so much other talent on these other teams that have worked their way through these past 2-3 years that have been right on the fringe and have felt like they've made that extra push to put them as championship contenders. So that's just kind of how I see it. Now back to the West side. When I look at the Suns Nuggets game, the fact that you have Jokic dropping 54 points and coming up in a loss, like, that just cannot happen.
53, but yeah.
53, yeah, sorry. So many points. How can you possibly remember? But regardless, he's just absolutely dominating offensively. His defense has always been kind of a question mark. But regardless of that, he's not the one that's guarding Devin Booker. He's not the one that's guarding Kevin Durant. You'd think of a Suns team that was missing Chris Paul would be struggling, bar none. You'd think they'd have a difficult time facilitating the ball, getting it to their playmakers. But Devin Booker has stepped up extremely well. I know he's caught a lot of flack, and, he's not too high on my like players that I'm like fans of, just because, like, whatever it may be, I'm just not a huge fan of his game. But, when it comes to playoff basketball and for him to step up in big moments, he's really taken that stride to cement himself as like an all-star in this league. And Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant. I don't need to speak on how good he is. But, for the Nuggets, it just feels like get someone other than Jokic to do things, but maybe just play better defense. Who knows? I'll kind of touch on these last two very quickly. For the Celtics, why not just let him score the game tying shot? Why are you giving the open three to James Harden? Doesn't really make sense to me. And then not understanding how much time's left in the game. And you should have called the timeout anyway. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. Move on next game, figure it out, I suppose. And then last but not least, Lakers Warriors. Look, I know 3-1 is really huge, but this Warriors team is more than talented enough to cover 4 games in a row. You only play one game at a time. There's no double headers in basketball. You take it one game at a time. They can probably win their way back into it. So the Lakers are going to have to play extremely well if they want to put the Warriors away at this point. I know they're playing extremely well. Lonnie Walker off the bench turned into prime Michael Jordan for some reason. I don't know where that came from, but shout out to him. AD and LeBron are going to continue to step up so long as they stay healthy. That'd be a big question mark if one of them went down. But other than that, it just feels like this Lakers team is playing really complimentary basketball. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with the Heat Knicks. Like Zach said, the Heat are just playing great basketball at the perfect time. My kind of thought process going into that series was I thought I liked the Knicks going into that series. I'll admit it,
Right.
because my kind of thought was I didn't think Jimmy Butler, as great as he's playing, could by himself kind of win that series. But the entire Heat like supporting cast has showed up every single night. They've kind of came to play and been that kind of support that he needed, even with that, with like the kind of crazy run he's been on. And the Knicks, their stars just kind of aren't showing up when it's needed. Julius Randle, major liability, and it looks kind of like the Knicks are might get bounced in 5 because of it by an 8 seed, and that's not. I don't say that to discount the Heat at all. And that kind of brings me to Celtics Sixers, because the Sixers are so frustrating, because as great as the Celtics are, they've proved Philadelphia has that when both of their stars show up, that they compete with the Celtics, but you don't kind of know if they are. James Harden, he looked great in game 1, and then game 2 and 3 did not look as great, and almost, I don't want to say like reluctance to shoot the ball, but like timidness. And you can kind of credit that to Embiid being out and then him coming right back in, and then having to get that flow back in the playoffs against the Celtics. That's not easy, but when James Harden and Embiid both show up, they can compete, but you just don't exactly know if that's going to happen every night. And in a 7-game series against one of the best teams in the league, everybody's got to show up every night. And then kind of looking at the West, I'm not exactly about Suns Nuggets. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant look great, but I'm not as moved as some other people are. I still think it's Nuggets. That doesn't the two great games by Booker and Durant doesn't kind of change the fact that they don't have the greatest depth in the world. And I think that's going to kind of show up as in the final couple games of the series. You're going to need that bench, the supporting cast, to go against a deep team like the Nuggets are. So I still think I still like the Nuggets in that series. Booker's been great. Kelly, like Zach said, Kevin Durant's going to be Kevin Durant no matter the game. But I still like the Nuggets. And looking at Warriors Lakers, I don't think we should. I also agree that I don't think we should count out the Warriors in that series. We just did it. We did the same thing with the series before with the Kings. We can't. They've been here before. One game, like Zach said, one game at a time. They're experienced. They've won 4 championships. It's all the Lakers have to do is win one game, and as well as they've been playing, that may has come very easily in game 5 or 6. But we should just not count out the Warriors just yet. I don't think.
Yeah, I got kind of to follow back on what Cameron said. Yeah, I do agree that even though I'm not a fan the Warriors because of me as a Celtics fan, not happy they won against us, but I do think that you cannot count on the Warriors just at being down 3-1. They were down 3-1 back in I think like 2016 finals or 2017 finals when they ended up winning those like 3 games, those final 3 games. So and what LeBron recently said was that you cannot get too comfortable in the series against the Warriors. So I do think that the Warriors could win and back in Golden State, but then we have to see how they will handle back being in LA and how they will be able to handle being in LA's atmosphere, how big it was that game last night, which I did see. For the Heat and Knicks, really haven't paid much attention to that series, but seeing how obviously knowing like Jimmy Butler wins in the playoffs is like a whole nother person. I feel like just the Knicks, how they've been playing, I just don't think. I think the Heat, surprisingly, a play-in team that defeated the 1 seed like the first time. I think in the remember the first time since a play-in was like created, a play-in team defeated one of the top seeds. So they showed they were who they were against the Bucks, and they got the Bucks head coach fired because of how well they play against Giannis in the Milwaukee Bucks. I do think they will take out the Knicks in Game 5. For the Sixers Celtics, that game my family is definitely going to be watching because my family is also Philadelphia. So that series, I do think Celtics will be able to take that win in the Garden. It'll be definitely tough though, but I think the last time we played in the Garden, we scored like 34 against the Sixers, and then that one game in Philly, the first game in Philly, we won that game. So like we were able to handle that pressure being in Philadelphia. We just got to be able to take home court advantage. Because like when Malcolm Brogdon said today, he said like it's a very critical game for them to play because I think it was like 82% of the teams that have won Game 5 won the series. And when it was tied 2-2. So that's a very critical game for both the Nuggets Suns and the Sixers Celtics games. Whoever wins that game has a really good chance of advancing. And finally, for the Nuggets and the Suns, obviously all the talk was around the past couple of days was with Jokic and the Suns owner, which really didn't play much of a factor like that game per se, because Jokic has played tremendous in the playoffs in that series. But even like that game, he had like 53 points. They still lost to the Suns, and Suns won their 2 straight games at home. So we'll see. I guess we'll see how Denver does at home as well, which will be a very fun series to watch as well.
Yeah, definitely. The Knicks have really disappointed me with their performance throughout the series against Miami. I did pick the Knicks to win in 7. If you follow me on Twitter, I did like a first round predictions where I had them beating the Cavs in 7. They beat them 5. overachieved, definitely. And then the second round, I thought they would overachieve once again, even though Miami was an 8 seed. Um, like I said about the Lakers in an earlier episode, that they were the Lakers, like the Lakers, the Heat are a false 8 seed, especially with how they played against Milwaukee and how they just overwhelmed, just blew them out of the gym with how they beat them in 5 games. So Miami, I knew they weren't going to be underestimated at all, which is why I had it going to 7. But it just seems like Miami should be the 5th seed. These seedings should be reversed because from the way the Knicks have been playing, they have been playing like an 8 seed, not a 5th seed. So with the Heat being up 3-1, it's just been very disappointing to see from the Knicks, especially with how successful they've been this season with Jalen Brunson and on most occasions Julius Randle, who has been very up and down throughout this postseason. He had a very good game too to get the Knicks to win to tie the series at 1-1 earlier in the series against Miami, but just hasn't followed up with that type of consistency in these past 2 games. So the Knicks are at risk of seeing their season end very soon, maybe as soon as tomorrow. But we'll have to figure out from then and there to see what type of Knicks team we'll see tomorrow night, whether they extend the series to 6, push it to 7 maybe, or they just finish their season. They just see their season go on the wraps tomorrow night. And for the Sixers Celtics, it doesn't surprise me that the Celtics are tied with the Sixers at this point in the series. I had the Celtics winning in 6, so my assumption is that they win Game 5 and close it out in Game 6, which is, fingers crossed, the hope. But it is really frustrating to see them not allow a 3-pointer when they weren't supposed to. Like, you could do whatever you want, but just let them tie the game. We'll see what happens in overtime, or the second overtime period, because this game, that game went into overtime and had a chance to go to double OT if the Celtics allowed Embiid to score inside instead of him kicking it out to Harden for that corner 3-game winner, basically. And the timeouts, you can live with not calling the timeout, especially if you got a good shot. But the issue was they were too late. Like, they started too late. They passed the ball to Marcus Smart, even though it would have been an amazing game winner for Marcus Smart to splash that 3 at the end. Unfortunately, the shot wasn't in time as the buzzer already sounded. So it's tough to see that from Smart, who had missed a potential game winner into end of 4th quarter, and to see him make this game winner in overtime, but it didn't count because it was not in time. It's just tough. But again, the Celtics have always bounced back from tough losses. They did that in Game 1 after James Harden's spectacular performance in that game with 2 consecutive victories. So we'll see how the Celtics do from Game 5 and Game 6. And for the Lakers Warriors, the Lonnie Walker game, need I say less? A spectacular 4th quarter performance of Lonnie Walker. Great story of always be ready when your number is called up. That's really just a story right there from what happened in Game 4 between the Lakers and Warriors. Lonnie Walker stepped up big time, and he has been stepping up big time in this series with how much playing time he's gotten since Game 2 of this series. So props to Lonnie Walker. Props to Anthony Davis for finally gaining some consistency, not going quiet on the offensive end. Even though it was a little concerning to see him go a little bit quiet in the 4th quarter with how offensively quiet he was in the second half after being explosive in the first half, but it doesn't matter. They got the win, and that's all that matters. And yeah, the Warriors, outside of Curry, Jordan Poole, man, the donut in 10 minutes of action after getting that bag from his performance last year in the playoffs, especially in the finals as well. Fraudulent. That's what it's looking like right now. And but yeah, the Warriors are in a tough spot right now. Like, they can win Game 5. I wouldn't be surprised if they win Game 5. I have the Lakers winning at 7, but it could end as, like I said about the Knicks Heat series, it could end as soon as tomorrow. So the Warriors really have to be ready for Game 5. Same with the Lakers. If they don't want to blow a 3-1 lead, you might as well end it as soon as tomorrow, or just close it out in 6 like you did against Memphis. But again, it's a game of chance, and you don't want to risk it by losing a game when you have the upper hand. And for Nuggets Suns, it is a wild card, definitely. But it really can go either way. When it comes to the Suns, it really revolves around Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, as we have seen from the past couple of games. The Nuggets really have to center their defensive game plan around keeping them quiet and forcing the other guys to step up. Because so far we haven't really seen those other guys step up, especially DeAndre Ayton, who has been relatively quiet. He hasn't really had a lot of big performances in this series. So forcing him to step up, forcing Cameron Payne to step up, forcing TJ Warren to step up. That's really should be the focus for the Nuggets if they want to really limit what the Suns are capable of on the offensive end, and especially limiting the shots Devin Booker and Kevin Durant takes. That's really all there is to it when it comes to stopping these guys. So before we wrap it up, any final thoughts on how the playoffs could turn out after the second round?
I'm just interested to see what see how the world would come crashing down if LeBron gives up the 3-1 lead. I just want to see the coping, and I just want to see what this would do to the LeBron legacy lore that kind of goes around the 3-1 lead, how that changes. I'm just interested to see how that would pan out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Cameron. If LeBron somehow did manage to give up a 3-1 lead, I don't think we would ever stop talking about it until even after he retired. Anytime there'd ever be a 3-1 lead again, his name would just be brought up. It's just kind of one of those deals, in both good and bad context at this point. But I mean, there's so many ways that the rest of these playoffs can play out. I mean, now the thing with the 2-2 series is now you're at a point in time where it only takes one bad game to completely shift momentum. It already felt like the Sixers stole one game away from the Celtics, but now if you lose, you're in a very bad spot. This game tonight, how Maddox said, the 85% of games, you have a win tonight is way more than you could possibly imagine. And I really just don't hope they don't get eliminated in the semis. If it's in conference finals or in the finals, I mean, I'll still be upset, but I'll cope with it. But a loss now, that's a shot in the gut. That just hurts all your fans, especially for how well you've been playing all year. You've been kind of the dominating factor in most aspects. And then for the other series, I expect Miami to close it out. And on top of that, I'm in agreement with Cameron. I think the Suns have just been playing well the last two games. I think it's very hard to repeat that type of success over a multitude of games or series for that matter. So I do think their depth is going to play a huge part in winning. But then again, who knows? NBA officiating is always on the table. You never know how games are going to be reffed from here on out. Scott Foster could pull a masterclass and just completely ruin some teams' postseason chances. So, you live and you die by it. But regardless, there's nothing but excitement left. It's playoff basketball. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, to me, I think that right now Miami's kind of looking like FAU right now, being underseeded and just going through the top seeded teams. I do see the Heat closing out the series. I think it's tonight. I can see them closing out the series tonight. I can see Heat against Celtics.
Tomorrow, but yeah.
Oh, tomorrow, yeah. I can see Heat and Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and for the Lakers Warriors, that's gonna be the most talked about series I think right now in the playoffs, because if the Warriors come back and win and the Warriors end up winning their championship, now it's oh, where do you put Steph Curry on that Mount Rushmore? If LeBron and the Lakers end up winning the series and end up getting a chance to win the finals, how would that also affect LeBron's legacy of him being considered now the GOAT? Or is it still neck and neck with him and MJ? It's gonna be a very talked about series. And with Suns, Nuggets, it's going to be, again, like we said, Richard, it's going to be a wild card. But I could see the Suns end up if Devin Booker and Kevin Durant both played terrific, and the defense, with the short depth they have already on the team, if their defense does a good job to stop Jokic and with any other players on the Nuggets from scoring big, I do think that it could be the Suns, Lakers in the Western, and Heat, Celtics in the Eastern.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. With that, that'll be it for this episode of UPressPlay Sports. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Click the bell to keep up with notifications from us. Also be sure to go on upressonline.com to keep up with news, sports, and more content alike. To follow us on Twitter, it's for me, at Rich26Pereira, for Cameron, at PrehistorCameron, and for Zach, at ZachWatts1_. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.